back in. There we go. Perfect. Thank you so much, Kristen. So we'll go ahead and get started. We're really glad to have Lynn Bonner with us today to talk about mis and disinformation, especially as it relates to elections. Most of you know about the League of Women Voters, but we would be remiss if we did not start out with saying a little bit about ourselves. We were founded in 1920. Our league in Wake County was founded at the same time as the National League and the State League. Our mission, of course, is to empower voters and defend democracy, and we are committed to doing that in a nonpartisan way. And what that means is we do not ever support or oppose candidates or parties. We do, however, support issues and advocate for those issues and encourage our members to do so. So thank you all. I know many of you are members. Thank you for being members. If you're a guest, have come to hear Lynn, please consider joining us in other activities as well. We welcome you. A couple of important notes. The Vote for One candidate guide should come out tomorrow. So I checked in with Sandy and Sandy Hutchinson, we are on track for that to come out tomorrow. Vote 411 is live all the time, but the candidate guide is where you can compare the responses of candidates who have responded to our survey. Sandy did let me know that 100% of the county commissioner candidates have responded. So we're really excited about that. You all probably know as well as I do that the registration dates and so forth, but those are here for you to remind your friends, make sure people are registered to vote. It is, we have really low turnout in our primaries, especially in midterm elections. Last time around, 19.74% of Wake County turned out. The time before that, it was 12%. So you can really make a difference if you vote in the primaries, and really want you to encourage your friends to do so. I'm not going to go through all these. Oh, yes, Pat. Your ballot can be downloaded today. Great. Pat is saying, start your research. Your ballot can be downloaded today. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through all of these opportunities, but they are all in the newsletter that comes out on Monday. So please take a look at those newsletters. We have revamped the newsletter for 2026, and thanks very much to our comms team, some of whom are here today. Thank you, Tracy. So please do take a look at the newsletter. We tried to shorten it up, make it easier to read it all. And we love your feedback as you take a look at that. I do want to give a plug for next month's timely topics. We're going to have a three-speaker panel that will be on Zoom only. So we'll not be meeting in person for that one. So it promises to be a really good event. And I'm going to ask Celeste Stanley to come up, and we'll hear just a quick word from our membership committee.
Good afternoon. Wonderful to see all your faces out there, both new and returning folks. Really quickly, the membership committee, of which I'm one of the co-chairs, along with Kathy, who's waving her hand. And one of the things that we're charged as a membership committee, we're a small committee, but we really want to engage our members. And for our new members especially, we want to provide opportunities for them to meet not only people in leadership and the different committees, but to just meet all the members. So I'll just highlight a couple of things we're doing. Our meet and greets. Anybody's welcome to attend, whether you're a member or not. We would love for you to attend. The first one is coming up March 4th, at Bowl Box over in Morrisville. One of the things we're trying to do is have events in we're a huge chapter. Wake County's huge. And so we really try and go to different places throughout Wake County to have events. And we also trying to potluck brunches where someone hosts. I'll be hosting the next one. It'll be a brunch at my house in Wake Forest, and that is on February 28th. And how those work, these are all on the calendar. If you're a member, you have access to the calendar. If you're not, don't, but you can always reach out to me and you can check anything. I can give you my email and give you more information. But those are a couple of things that are coming up. And at the brunch, it's an opportunity to come and meet new members, and it's a potluck, and it's very fun. I've hosted a dinner. And we'll have more meet and greets and more dinners or potlucks coming up. But again, all that information is available on the calendar. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Celeste. And thanks so much to Celeste and Kathy and the whole membership committee. You've been doing a great job of creating different types of opportunities for us to get together on nearly a monthly basis. So please do take advantage of that when you can. Sometimes people think that's for new members only. It's not. I go when I can, and it's always a lot of fun and a good casual chance to just meet and chat with folks, literally. Oops, one slide too much. So we're going to do something a little bit different today, and really appreciate that Lynn Bonner has accommodated in her schedule to stay a little bit longer so that we can really have a moment to bring to life what she's going to share with us. And we're trying this out today, and if it is something that you find meaningful, the membership committee would like to continue it. So what we'll do is Lynn's going to present to us, and we'll have our normal Q&A. And then we're going to shift to having some conversation at our tables for about 10 minutes. And we want you to consider 2 questions, and the questions are up on the slide. And I'll read them out just so you can have that in your mind as you're listening to Lynn. What are some things that you personally can do to combat misinformation? And then what can the League do to do the same to combat misinformation? So 2 pretty straightforward questions, but just be musing those over, if you will, while you hear what Lynn has to share with us. And now I'd like to introduce to you Lynn Bonner, who's with us. And Lynn is a senior investigative reporter for NC Newsline. And if you are not yet a reader of NC Newsline, I really encourage you to add it to your daily read. Lynn is also often one of those folks I read on at least a weekly, if not a daily basis. NC Newsline is a Raleigh-based, nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom dedicated to fearless reporting and hard-hitting commentary that shines a light on injustice, holds public officials accountable, and helps improve the quality of life throughout North Carolina. NC Newsline is part of State's Newsroom, the nation's largest state-focused nonprofit news organization. Lynn joined Newsline after more than 20 years as a reporter at the News and Observer, where she covered the state legislature and politics and wrote extensively about mental health, state Medicaid policies and spending, and public education. Lynn is an experienced journalist with a keen focus on North Carolina's political and social landscapes. With a background in both investigative reporting and covering legislative affairs, Lynn brings a wealth of knowledge and insightful analysis to NC Newsline. Her dedication to uncovering the truth and delivering timely, impactful stories has made her a trusted voice among readers. Through her work, she explores critical issues facing the state, from education and healthcare to environmental policies, ensuring that North Carolinians and readers around the country are well informed about the matters that affect their lives. And I should mention that NC Newsline is a subscription-free service. There is no cost to read and be a reader of NC Newsline. And so with that, please join me in welcoming Lynn Bonner. So Kristen will get your slides up. You're ready to go.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for having me here to talk about something that journalists are thinking about all the time, how to avoid falling for lies. people tell us things that are not true all the time. And a lot of our work is trying to figure out what's true, what's not, what's a half truth. And it's getting harder and harder because of, because of a lot of things. There is a rise in disinformation and the spread of disinformation that is leaking into the mainstream because of AI-generated images that have kind of overtaken social media. I saw something recently that said about half of US adults say they get at least some of their news from social media, and we all know how easy it is to be overwhelmed by the echo chambers that social media creates. But first, I want to go back to a simpler time. Back in far back in 2023, do you all remember this image of Pope Francis in the puffer jacket? Everybody fell for it. And this is something that truly went viral. This image was created by a Chicago construction worker who was under the influence of shrooms. He used an AI generation tool to create this image, posted it on Reddit, and it went everywhere. Everybody fell for it, and I was teasing, except for me. I was teasing a colleague of mine who said, yeah, I believe that. And this image spawned so many think pieces about fashion and religion and what made this image believable, why people wanted to believe it. And the tone of some of these pieces was, oh, ha, ha, we got fooled. And, this is all fun and games until media organizations get tricked. Maybe you might remember this from 2004. This was sent out by Kensington Palace. And several news organizations made this available to their clients, but had to withdraw it because there was evidence that it was manipulated. And Princess Kate eventually said, yeah, I used Adobe Photoshop to change a few things. And it's like, well, news organizations really aren't supposed to share manipulated images, which was why it had to be withdrawn. But, it's a Mother's Day photo. It's not life and death, right? So, okay, well, whatever. But now we're pretty deep into the age where fake photos purporting to depict headline news are in wide circulation. Fake photos of Maduro's capture were everywhere. People were sharing them. And, there was a Florida politician who shared one of them. This was one that was in really wide circulation. Big news organizations have teams with expertise who are looking at these images, and they have detection tools that smaller newsrooms and most individuals really can't afford. And the New York Times, I don't know if any of you saw this, wrote about trying to authenticate this photo that was posted to social media by the president. They ended up saying for sure, they really didn't know for sure whether it was authentic or not, but wrote about their efforts to authenticate and talked about how they decided to frame a story around this photo. And I know most of you know this kind of sort of distorting of the facts translate to political campaigns as well. And it has forever and ever. I'm sure you've all noticed television ads and mailers where the candidates don't depict their opponents as they really appear, or they highlight partial quotes or take quotes out of context because they want to win elections and they want you to think something about their opponent. I remember a mailer an opponent of Clay Aiken sent out, where the image was of him holding a microphone with his pinky up. And it's like, oh, well, that's not all that subtle. I also remember a campaign, US Senate campaign from years ago, where there was a TV ad. One candidate ran against her opponent, where it appeared the candidate was saying, there is no God. And it wasn't really even a very good voice dupe, but the ad wanted people to think that this candidate was saying there is no God. And this also spawned lots and lots of news stories about the accuracy, why it was run, comments from both candidates. This was, kind of a fake before fakes became widespread. So a lot of news organizations don't routinely do fact checks anymore of political ads, but it's something that we can all do on our own. If you see something that is, I'm sorry, I'm not sure why this skipped ahead. If you see something that a candidate is saying about another, or even about the candidate themselves, that you think might not be entirely true, I'm sure you all know how to do your own research. Look for instances where the quote was taken. Look for context. There's still, although there aren't fact checks of ads, there's still a lot of reporting about certain high profile instances, and there's certainly a lot of video circulating about people saying certain things. So if you're curious about a claim, go find its source. And although news organizations don't have enough people to do this anymore, maybe you can find one. If there's an ad you think really needs further explanation, try calling a local reporter to say, hey, have you thought about looking into the claims behind this ad? And if you make that pitch, it might work. But as I say, local newsrooms are a lot smaller than they used to be, and there's a whole lot more to cover. So it is really imperative on really all of us to look for sources of information and see where candidate claims are originating. So I spent a lot of time talking about not believing images at first glance, but now I hope to make a graceful pivot to why sometimes video and visual and images can be important at getting to truth. As I said, bigger newsrooms have video investigative teams, and some newsrooms call them video investigative team or forensic teams that have the tools that we don't have to stitch together video, examine video frame by frame. And some of these video investigations can help uncover facts. And we saw this in action over the last few weeks with the immigration agent shootings in Minneapolis, where a bunch of the big newsrooms did video analysis that countered the narratives coming from federal officials. And all of the bigger national newsrooms did this. But in the spirit of promoting nonprofit news and news that survives on donations and places where you can get information for free if you no longer want to subscribe or to the bigger outlets. There is a news outlet called Bellingcat. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it. That was really the pioneer in looking at video. They really started looking at war zones, about war zones, and doing a lot of work there. But recently they've pivoted to to look at claims about ICE nationwide. So they've really done some really significant work and some probing investigations with some other nonprofit newsrooms around the country. So I mentioned how easy it is to fall into social media echo chambers. And I have to stop myself from sort of clicking on news and sharing posts just because they confirm my own biases. I don't know if you all remembered an ICE raid from late last year in Chicago, where it was really dramatic. The agents were rappelling from helicopters, and they went in and sort of cleared out an entire decrepit apartment building. Well, on a social media site that I use, there were just all of these posts about how a bank was involved. The bank had foreclosed on this property, and it was just post after post about how the bank called ICE to go and clean out this building. So, and this bank is, has been known for bad acts in the past. And I thought, wow, this is really incredible news. I think I'm gonna, repost it. I think this was one that I reposted, then took back and unreposted, because trying to follow my own rules, I was thinking, well, just because everybody is saying it, is this really true? So this is a story that I'm kind of interested in following, even though, I've been to Chicago once. But lately, the story has definitely evolved. And lately it is not really focused on the bank, but whether the landlord tipped off ICE. And now there's an investigation in that. So when you're reading claims online and coming across things that look like they might be true, check your own biases, and sometimes it really does pay to wait to see how a story is going to evolve. So as I was warning about synthetic images and synthetic news, there are some, if you are questioning whether an image is really real, there are some AI detection tools you can use. I guess everybody's kind of familiar with Google reverse image. That will sometimes tell you whether an image is AI generated. It's been kind of hit or miss for me. There is a site called TinEye that is free, and that will tell you when an image was first posted and who has used it. And there's another free detection tool called AI or Not, which I found to be really useful in detecting AI. Unfortunately, it only gives you 10 free searches. And when you get on and when you use it, they try to upsell you right away. So I would save that for one where you really think, this is important information for you to know. And I'm sure a lot of you can suggest others, because everybody's trying to look out for images that are fake and news that is fake. So what can we all do to try to limit false information and the spreading of false information? First of all, don't like or share images or videos or articles that are completely AI generated or edited to mislead people or are spread by bots. You know, bots on some sites are just overwhelm a site. And it's one of these instances, well, if all these people are saying that, then it must be true. No. If you read an article or see candidate claim where you think some of the things are questionable, go look for other sources. Are other outlets that you respect reporting the same thing, or do they have at their base kind of the same facts? News organizations frame stories in different ways. And if you read, you know, read about the same event across a number of news sites, as I often do, you're going to find, you know, different quotes, things that are framed in different ways, but they should all have kind of the same nugget of truth in there. So if you're really curious about something, go look for sources. And you know, I'm old, and I don't get my news from TikTok or YouTube, but I don't think it's a good idea to use social media as your only source of news. There's interesting commentary there, but there's also these sites are just overwhelmed by AI slop. And there are a lot of things there that are untrue. Some of them harmless. I mean, if there's you know, a horse jumping over a rainbow, fine. But if but if there is a claim that's being made about a news event that is AI generated, that gets into like the mainstream, that is so much more harmful. So, and another thing is, you know, we just don't want to expose our friends to things that are false. I mean, we all have followers and people who respect us, who are following us on social media. We don't want to trick them, right? So that's why it's worth holding off if you have any suspicion that something might not be true. So I want to put in a plug for some nonprofit newsrooms because I work for one, and because there's a lot of good information out there that you can get for free. And I will say that some of these, all these organizations survive on donations, and I donate to a lot of nonprofit newsrooms. One of them is ProPublica. I'm sure you've heard of that. That's a national investigative news site, but they have a Southern reporter who has done some interesting work out of North Carolina, definitely worth reading. If you are, I mentioned Bellingcat before, if you're interested in forensic visual investigations, and if you're interested in specific topics, the environment, for example, there is a site called Inside Climate News that has a national scope, but one of my former colleagues was hired recently as their North Carolina reporter. And that site is definitely worth checking into now and again if you want the latest on environment, pollution, and climate change. I think I'll stop now. If any of you have questions, I'm happy to take them.
Thank you, Lynn. Microphone.
It's not working. Can you hear it? Can you hear it? Okay. Who has a question for Lynn? Great, Ruth, and just ask you to keep the mic close to your mouth or it won't be. That's it. Can people hear me now? So, thank you for that, comprehensive review. I do not get my news from social media. I get my news from reliable sources. Oh. Now, I have to say, and I don't wish to offend anybody in this room, but we do get a lot of misinformation from the current administration. My question is, how do we counteract that?
Well, how do you, as an individual, counter that?
Yes.
Um,
Sorry to interrupt, but let
yeah.
me just remind everybody that we're in a nonpartisan space, and I know you know that, but
you know, all politicians and political administrations want us to believe things that are not true. And what we can do about that is, first, as I said, do research about this. And in talking to friends, and you might risk alienating some of your friends, but if they repeat things that are false, you can say, I don't think that's true. I think that, someone important said this, but they have a reason that they want you to believe it. But there is evidence that shows that this is not true. And it's important to come with receipts when you're sort of challenging friends and loved ones. But if you can point to certain instances where, hey, look, somebody said that this wasn't true, and this is really what's happening. I think individually we can all help spread truth, right? And limit spreading things that are false. We can do it, personally. We can do it online, by highlighting things that have been proven true. It's a small thing to do, but I think it's an important thing to do because, we all want to operate from a place of fact, right? So it always pays to ask yourself, hey, is this true? I mean, that's the big question. If you're walking to a newsroom, people are always asking one another, hey, is this true? And how do I prove it? Where are the sources? Who is saying something else? So yeah, this is something we can all do. I mean, if you find someone who thinks something is true that really isn't, you can sort of gently ask, oh, well, why do you think that's true? Because I have different information. I think we can all just, in our small circles, promote truth.
I love that spread truth. It's a great policy. Thank you. Is there any reliable organization that you know of, whether government sponsored or otherwise, that's trying to regulate AI in terms of the way it spreads disinformation?
No. That was an easy one.
Other questions? Oh, so, I'm going to start here. How reliable is the site Snopes.com?
That's pretty reliable, actually. I've found it to be, pretty good. Not 100%, but, I check it, I read it.
Can you tell us more about the organization that you're part of? 'Cause I'm not familiar with it.
It's a newsroom called NC Newsline. It's a nonprofit, and we are part of a national organization called States Newsroom. And States Newsroom has newsrooms in 40 state capitals, and we partner with nonprofit newsrooms in the 10 other states. For example, we have a partnership with Cal Matters in California, with the Texas Tribune in Texas. So, and States Newsroom also has a team of national reporters covering national topics like healthcare and elections and voting and reproductive rights. And we have a Washington bureau that's, pretty distinctive now because so many legacy news organizations are pulling back their national bureaus. I don't know if you know that McClatchy closed its national bureau and called everybody back. And, I was talking to a friend of mine who recently went to work, or a former colleague of mine who recently went to work for Bloomberg in Washington, who said that pretty soon the only people who are going to be reporting out of Washington are the big national news organizations and the trade organizations. So, I mean, to have a national bureau of any size is pretty distinctive. So, yeah, I don't know how, I think States Newsroom has been around for maybe 10 years. And always looking to grow.
Thank you, Robin.
You mentioned that people aren't reading traditional newspapers.
Mhm.
So if you wanted to write a letter to the editor, who would you write it to so that it would get some traction?
Oh, are you looking to write a letter to the editor to a traditional news organization?
Well, I mean, who would you write it to?
Yeah, I mean, the NNO is still accepting letters to the editor. And there are local news organizations still around that are accepting letters to the editor. And lots of news organizations and news sites accept op-eds. So if you are interested in a particular topic, have some expertise in a particular topic, I would recommend you write an op-ed, and that will possibly find traction at news organizations that don't traditionally print letters to the editor.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I can hear. I was interested in where the funding comes as far as donors. Is it mostly for your organization? Is it mostly individuals? Do you have PACs?
No, we don't have PACs. We get our money from foundations. There's some rich guy, I don't know, who gives money to States Newsroom as a whole. But we also accept individual donations. If you weren't subjected to our end of year donor please in December, we're always accepting donations. So if you see something you like, you can click the donor button and kick us a few bucks. And I'd also suggest you do that for other nonprofits that you find are writing compelling news, because it's nonprofit, it's free to read, but it's not free to produce.
A follow on to that, and then coming up to, are you still connected to the North Carolina Justice Center?
We are not. About 3 years ago, we separated from the Justice Center and changed our name. We used to be called Policy Watch.
Yeah.
And we left the Justice Center about 3 years ago to join State's Newsroom. You know, both State's Newsroom and Policy Watch were founded by Chris Fitzsimon. And although we at Policy Watch thought that we treated the news even-handedly, not everybody thought so, because we were connected to the Justice Center. So we separated, something that Chris really pushed for. And now we hope people see us as nonpartisan.
Yeah, that's important because those of us who donate to Justice Center assume you were supporting you as well.
Yeah, not anymore.
And not getting all that news from social media, but it occurs to me that without social media, we wouldn't have the videotape of George Floyd being, abused by police, because individuals, instead of writing a letter to the editor, are actively posting their observations so that we get that added to our foundation of what's that.
Exactly. I mean,
It's still important.
video is incredibly important, but it's also important to make sure that, especially in a campaign context, that the video hasn't been edited in a strange way, or yeah, I mean, or manipulated in some way. I mean, video can be misused, although has been really important, as you said, in George Floyd and in Minneapolis in the last couple of weeks. It's important to know that what you're seeing is real and hasn't been tampered with.
Other questions? I wanted to just share one thing that came to mind when you were talking, Lynn, about not sharing untrue things. I think it's also important not to share them to say they're not true. Because when you share things on social media, even if you're making a statement that says, don't believe this, this is a lie, it feeds into the algorithm. The more it gets shared, the more people see it. So it's better just to ignore. And if you have a friend you're concerned with, that they're sharing things that aren't true, to talk to them in the real world. So I wanted to, while Lynn is still up there, I just wanted to highlight an example of some of the great journalism that Lynn does every day. And it sounds like several of you haven't discovered NC Newsline yet. I really encourage you to read it. January 28th, North Carolina Elections Board to review all administrative rules for absentee ballots. That could not be closer to the heart of the League of Women Voters. So thank you, Lynn, for your reporting.
Yeah, I know I might have met some of you at Wake County Board of Elections meetings. I know that you've been active in elections and redistricting issues, and that has been a real focus of mine. And I would encourage everybody to look at what's happening with elections and voting and possible voting changes, because they're coming this year in time for the midterm elections. So yes, everybody be on the lookout.
And we appreciate your being on the lookout too.
So we're gonna switch now to our table discussion. So if you would just, chat amongst the folks at your table. And on, the two questions we had, which is, what can you do to combat mis and disinformation, and what could the league do? Then we'll, in about 10 minutes, we'll come back together and just ask people to shout out ideas. And at that time, then we'll thank them. Okay, so just talk amongst yourselves.